Hi. So now we have the amazing opportunity to hear from Chasten Buttigieg, a teacher, advocate, and now author who was on the campaign trail this past year alongside his husband, former presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg. He will be speaking about being on the campaign trail, Pride Month, and his upcoming book, I Have Something to Tell You. As a trans teen and a performing arts student, Chasten's presence on the campaign trail meant a lot to me. And I know that he made a huge impact on so many queer people, especially LGBT+ youth. So please give a warm welcome to Chasten Buttigieg. Chasten, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing well. How is everything going with you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You got it. I appreciate such a nice introduction. I saw your tweet. I know you said you were nervous. There's nothing to be nervous about.
Thank you.
I'm really excited for this opportunity to chat, though. It's nice to see you again. I think the last time we saw one another was in Virginia. Was it Virginia?
Yeah, my train.
You could say anywhere.
It's actually behind me. I had to cover it today.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's wonderful to see you, and thank you for your really kind introduction. And thank you to everyone at High School Democrats for America, especially the LGBTQ+ caucus, for organizing this. It is so kind of you to consider doing this for Pride, especially raising funds for PFLAG and GLAAD. And I am just honored to be outside the house. So the campaign ended. We went from 100 miles an hour to 0. And I thought it would be nice to just sit outside for a second. Literally make an excuse to leave the house, even if it's 10 yards away. It's been quite the summer so far, digesting everything that has happened, but also watching how our country is handling so many different things at once. And it sort of makes me miss being out on the campaign trail, because every day I got to meet with people like you, Elliot, who reminded me face to face just what was at stake and why we were in that race and why we were doing what we were doing. But I don't want to talk too long because I know you probably have a lot of questions. So it is such a pleasure to see you again. And I'm so touched that you all thought of me, and thank you for the invite.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you again. So the first question is anonymous, but it asks, how are you and Pete celebrating Pride this year?
Oh, goodness. Well, you know, we're going to try to do as much as we can. We have a couple things brewing that I can't announce yet. But sort of in the same lens as we viewed Pride last year, right? We were out on the campaign trail and we went to, you know, dozens of Pride events, and in a way trying to remind people that Pride is also a protest. Pride is a reason to stand up and dance and celebrate our existence, because for many of us, there were many times we thought we wouldn't even be alive today, right? So we should absolutely celebrate the fact that we are alive and that we love ourselves, and celebrate a community that welcomes us as well. But it's also a calling to make sure that we're sticking up for every single person in our community. And I think especially this year, you see just how, I was gonna say evil, but I guess I'll go with that word, this administration is, especially targeting queer people of color, and trans women of color in general, transgender Americans. And we're trying to make sure that we are being very cognizant of the fact that we owe a great deal of respect and admiration and work to people who showed up for us. But also for me, Pride, just me individually, is a time to pause and reflect on the fact that I'm here. And when I was a teenager growing up in Northern Michigan, there were many times that I thought I wasn't going to be here. And it is a moment for me to pause and give gratitude to the people who made sure that I made it, and people who show up for me every day, people who make space for me, make me feel loved, and then also reminding myself to take care of myself, and be comfortable in my own identity and cherish that and celebrate that.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, could you talk about moments on the trail where you really saw the impact of the campaign on queer youth?
Oh yeah, you know, there were so many moments that it really kind of came rushing in. I would meet with I met with kids in Florida and Oklahoma and Wisconsin, Michigan, California, New York. And every time I was sitting at a table with LGBTQ youth, I felt like I was hearing 25 very different stories. And kids whose parents were, it was a very unsafe space for them to be out and they couldn't be out. And then kids who were out, but were also going to school in places that didn't have supportive administrations. And then I would meet folks who maybe were 50, 60 years old, who still could not be out because of where they were living. And I remember very vividly one time when a couple had driven hours just to see Pete and I because they couldn't let anyone in their hometown know that they were supporting Pete because they were afraid of being found out. They lived in a small town and they drove for hours just so they could attend a rally. And it was meeting folks like that who, you didn't even have to say anything. Even when we were just in the same room, you could just tell how much the visibility of the campaign meant. And it meant a lot to me because my life changed very dramatically, going from, a teenager who thought he was never going to make it to making my way through college and kind of figuring it out. And all of a sudden falling in love with this person who then 5 years later runs for president. And I'm standing in these rooms with people who never imagined our country would be in this position. And it was especially meeting young people, especially young people who had similar slivers of my story, where I saw in them a piece of me and just knew how much responsibility was on my shoulders to get this moment right and to make sure that we were continuously showing up for everyone in our community, especially young people who so often I felt like were telling me how they just felt left out. They just felt ignored. They felt unsafe and they were worried about the trajectory of this country. And there were many, many moments, almost every single day, where I met somebody who identified as LGBTQ plus, and they let me know just what that campaign meant to them. Not only the visibility, but the obligation to get it right.
Yeah, I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Alrighty.
So what was it like to write a book and when did you start writing it? This is from Betsy, who's from Washington.
Oh, great. Thanks, Betsy. I started writing the book about 1.5 years ago. Just towards the start of the campaign, I thought that I should start writing all of my stories down, which was very helpful and cathartic on the campaign trail. Like, I just gotta journal this. Sometimes there are good days, sometimes there are bad days. And then when we came home, COVID-19 had us in lockdown. So we literally went from 100 miles an hour to 0. And it was a great way for me to sort of dump all my energy and time rather than, I allowed myself a few days of pajamas and ice cream and Netflix. But then that's what I just started doing every day. And it was really hard. And it was also really scary because you're not sure how the world's going to respond to your story, right? And I also want to make sure I did it right. And it was really hard, especially when you hand it over to other people and say, here's my life, here are all my vulnerabilities and my fears, and here are some comments on what it's like running for president, especially in a way that I feel like most people don't write about politics, and then having people be like, this is great, this is awful, and going back to the page and rewriting it. But I'm really proud of it. I'm really, really proud of the story, but I'm also really scared to share it with the rest of the world. But a great friend told me if you weren't scared, then it wouldn't mean anything. So I'm nervous, but I'm excited to share it with everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited to read it. Our final question is from Olivia, who's from Idaho, and she asks, what did you learn on the trail about the importance of coming out, and what has that act, a sort of rejection of silence, done for you personally? Why do you think it's important for us not to be silent, and how can we help others understand that?
Oh my gosh, I love that question so much. When I came out, it was unsafe to be out. It was just a matter of fact that it was unsafe to be out in Northern Michigan at that time. And it's not that I felt like my family didn't love me. It's that nobody here knew what it meant to be out. And so from everything that I had learned, either from religious circles or how folks talked about any sort of difference at school, was that something in me was wrong and twisted. And if I were to share that with the rest of the world, I would be a disappointment. So I just ran away from home, repaired that bridge with my family. There's a lot of, thank goodness my family was so patient and asked a lot of questions, because no one knew, and my parents were so gracious and patient, and still want to get it right and still want to be allies to as many people as possible. Then I think about folks I've been on the campaign trail who are trying to start a GSA in the middle of nowhere, right? And their school administration is saying, well, if you want to start a GSA, then we're going to have to start a straight club. And hearing from kids who are like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I can't even imagine when I was 16 or 17 stepping up and saying, we are going to have a GSA in the school, and then going back to a homophobic administration and saying, here's why. I think the act of coming out is so brave. The act of supporting people who come out is so brave. The act of sticking up and saying, if anyone decides they want to come out, here is this safe space, I'm offering it, it is real, it is authentic, and I'm here for you, and I will continue fighting for you every day and making this space for you because I value you, and I believe in your worth. And I have met people all across the country who have GSAs with 2 kids, and I have met folks, you know, in the heat of Brooklyn who are still afraid of coming out and coming in, especially the way our country is right now. And it is so important not only to those who are ready to come out, to do it in a way that feels authentic, but for straight allies to make sure that people in their lives understand that there is space for them and that they are worthy. I will also say there is no right or wrong way to come out. And you only come out when you are ready to come out. It is on your time, it is on your terms, and you owe nobody anything. It is all for you. It is not of service to other people. So I hope that if you are watching and you are thinking about it, if you're not quite there yet, you understand that coming out is about fulfilling something in yourself. It is not in service of other people. It is not to make other people comfortable. And if you are watching this and you want to be a better ally, make sure people in your life know that you are a safe space for them and you will always be a safe space for them, and that in your presence they are worthy and loved and valid at all times.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for joining us. It was really an honor.
You got it.
Thank you. So I will hand it off to Sin to introduce our next guest.